Hey James, thanks for the response. Now you make valid points, but when I speak of a god, I mean simply an individual god, implying the possibility of other gods existing and not God with a capital G. A god is simply a being that defies the laws of physics. A god could be an immaterial intelligent consciousness that is able to influence a material plane and that operates the laws of nature as we perceive them.
What's that, mass creature? Now, I wasn't discounting the other possible god concepts either there, so I'm not saying that I was just arguing against the idea of an all-powerful god. I was referring to polytheistic gods in that sense as well. The definition you gave of a god being simply a being which influences the laws of physics, which breaks the laws of physics, if the god is a being, then I'd say that it has to have some form of intelligence, it has to have some will, and some kind of decision-making process there as well. The definition which I gave also uses also has the statement that it has to be more powerful than any mortal. So a fairy, for example, which can shoot fire, which contains more energy than the fairy actually takes in, would be breaking the law of conservation of energy. However, if I can still swat it with a fly swatter and kill it, I wouldn't deem that as a god, because from the definition which I was giving, it has to be more powerful than any mortal. You say that you could also use the concept of a god being an immaterial, intelligent consciousness which influences the material plane and controls the laws of physics as we perceive them. I mean, that's pretty similar to the Yahweh definition, and yeah, I know disproving Yahweh doesn't disprove all gods, blah blah blah, but if you're saying that there's an immaterial being controlling the laws of physics, like I do not know what controls the laws of physics, what makes the laws of physics as we perceive them behave the way they do, but I don't think that it's any form of intelligence, because as we see it, the universe pretty much works like clockwork. The motion of the planets works like clockwork. Chemical reactions, gravity, pretty much everything you can think of. Now, if there was an intelligence operating it, something which has a will and makes decisions, then I think we'd expect to see things from time to time which didn't work as smoothly as this. We'd see people being turned into pillars of salt. We'd see cities which are full of homosexuals being struck by lightning, for example, or seas being parted, and that kind of thing. And there'd seem to be some kind of decision-making process behind it. If someone was walking under a boulder, which was rolling down the hill, and the boulder suddenly stopped, and that happened more often when there was a person there than when a person wasn't there, you could draw the conclusion that there was something intelligent guiding it. But from what I see, there doesn't seem to be anything which does break the law of physics, and even if there was, there doesn't seem to be anything like that with any kind of intelligence guiding it. I think you should look into atheism a bit if you haven't already. That's basically the concept that you have to have a definition of God before you can decide whether or not it's something that you believe in. Now, I use the definition which I'm using because it's pretty consistent with nearly every definition I've been presented with for the God concept. But still, when I'm debating with a theist who takes a slightly less classical view than most, I do find it important to find out exactly what their definition is and what positive claims they're making.
I don't deny that my arguments had some appeal to size, and perhaps that's not rational. Perhaps the universe is finite. Perhaps multiverse theory isn't relevant. I just can't say that there's nothing beyond our world that we and our technology can't detect. If I became a gnostic atheist, the burden of proof would be on me last time I checked. Also, when you say unicorns don't exist, you mean unicorns on Earth, and you don't give a fuck if unicorns are in a distant galaxy. I mean, I could say the same thing about extraterrestrials. Just because there are no extraterrestrials on Earth, does that mean there are none at all? I mean, extraterrestrials are by definition not of this world. That's why they are extraterrestrial. So I don't think existence should apply to our world. Surely the Andromeda Galaxy isn't on Earth. and we know that exists.
So personally, I don't think that I have the burden of proof for the simple fact that I'm not trying to convince other people to take the same stance that I do. I think you only have the burden of proof when you're trying to convince other people of a positive claim. So if a theist makes the positive claim that God exists, they have to provide the evidence for that to be the case. If I was trying to convince somebody else that no gods existed, then I would be the one with the burden of proof. All I can really do is basically refute the arguments for God which are presented to me, and if someone still wants to believe in a God after all of their arguments have been invalidated, well, that's completely up to them. I'm not trying to convince anybody to take a stance of certainty. So, when we're talking about existence, again, I'm trying to use things in more everyday context. So I'm trying to use definitions. So if a kid tells me that they've seen a unicorn, I will tell them that and I tell them that unicorns don't exist. I'm being completely honest with that statement, but I'm using it. But in the confines of the conversation, I'm saying that unicorns don't exist on Earth, because in that circumstance it invalidates what he's saying. I'm not saying that there's nowhere in the universe that unicorns can't exist. When you're talking about extraterrestrials, by definition, the parameters of the conversation are different, and we are talking about existence applying to things which are beyond Earth. The Hitler example I brought up, I can't remember if I used that or not now, or if I just wrote it in my notes, saying that, if multiverse theory is valid, if somebody says to me that Hitler's an Olympic athlete, when I say, no, Hitler isn't an Olympic athlete, all I'm saying is that in this universe, Hitler is not. I'm not saying that there's, it's mathematically certain that there's going to be another universe where he is. But, within the confines of the conversation, within the realms of common sense and what's being said, people should understand what I'm saying. Now, I do take the stance that I know that no gods exist in this universe. Outside of this universe, to what my position is irrelevant. I can certainly see situations where it is possible for a god to exist in other universes. I don't think that there's any gods which do exist in them, but I can see how it might be possible. There could be, say, a universe with a two-dimensional plane, which has two-dimensional creatures moving about, which can't perceive anything up and down, and there could be a three-dimensional plane which overlaps that with creatures of its own. So the three-dimensional creatures might be able to interact with the two-dimensional creatures and then fade away into what seems like non-existence. From the perspective of the two-dimensional creatures, you could say that the three-dimensional ones are gods. They are appearing to break the laws of physics. They are more powerful than any of them, and they do act with some form of intelligence. But again, this is just coming down purely to semantics again. So, yeah, I know gods don't exist in this universe. I don't care about the other universes. It's irrelevant from my standpoint.
If someone told me that Chuck Norris was their dad, I'd probably believe the guy was just pulling something out of his ass, but if someone says they know a god exists or doesn't exist, I can't accept that as knowledge. People can say I'm using redundant words like knowing and knowledge, but it is a question of knowledge. The Barking Atheist posted a video called Atheist Got of the Gaps in the Atheist YouTube Community Facebook group, and a Facebook user named Nonbeliever commented with a very remarkable comment. This is what he had to say. Again with this one, wasn't sure if I wanted to comment here or on YouTube. I might do both and see where the discussion better takes off. Also, there were a lot of points I wanted to go over from your recent videos on this topic, so I may even consider doing a video response of my own. Anyway, Here, I understand what you're saying. I do not actually think there is a God, and I do not in my everyday life grant it with any credibility. And I also understand that you're open to any evidence that may present itself legitimately should it ever come up. My problem is that you are still making a claim of knowledge, and perhaps for everyday life that is okay, but in the area of scrutinizing debate or argument, making your claim of knowledge is inexcusably ridiculous. Kind of like when someone claims they know God exists. However, I once again generally agree with you. It's pretty silly to realistically consider the existence of a God, but the improbability does not qualify it as non-existent. You titled your video Atheist God of the Gap, so I should expect that you'd understand this. The funny thing is that, on the surface of it all, I am on your side. But when it comes down to it, this is a terribly bold claim of knowledge. Whether you like it or not, the existence of a God or higher power, or whatever you want to call it, it is a subject very much prevalent in society and has a great impact on our lives. Far greater than the existence of unicorns, leprechauns, fairies, or the Zagav Lajaz Yargub, all of which we tend to dismiss without giving any thought. And that's why you likely won't be debating about them.
No, I still just take the stance that I want to use a word which is more compliant with our everyday usage of a word. Like I said, if I was as certain about anything else as I am about me believing that God doesn't exist, I would say that I know. I would say that I am sure about that thing. So, yeah, if I was 99.999% sure that I locked a door, then I would say that I knew that that was the case. I would say that I was certain of it. And I just want to use a word which is more in fitting with everyday life. Because we can always say that there's some level of uncertainty. In the strictest possible sense, we do not know anything. But that makes the word knowledge completely redundant. Using it in this circumstance makes the word agnostic completely redundant. I just want to use words which are more compliant to everyday use. Now, yes, when it would be using that in debate would be ridiculous, but nobody really does that. If I'm debating a theist, I am arguing against the points that they present to me about the existence of God. I'm not trying to convince them that the existence of God is impossible. I'm not trying to convince them that they should be certain that no gods exist. Now, by saying that, well, God's a big issue, so so you can't compare it to the Lazari Larazab or whatever the fuck it's called, is just simply an appeal to popularity. Just because more people believe in something doesn't make the idea any less ridiculous. And when it comes to everyday things as well, you're saying that, we should treat God differently because it's something which affects our lives. Well, what about the other examples I gave which do affect our lives? If I say that I locked a door, that affects my life. If I'm wrong, someone's going to come in and rob the place. That would affect my life just as much, if not more so. But in that circumstance, I still say that I am sure of something. I just don't think that I should be lumped in with a group of people who have a 50.1% belief that God doesn't exist, when my position is so far in the other end, and in any other circumstance, nobody would be telling me I am wrong for saying that I know something.
So in my opinion, this topic is worth a debate/discussion, and I'm going to continue asking questions instead of pretending like I already know. I might drop the agnostic title sometime in my life, James, but I'm a skeptic. That's just how my mind works. I don't accept everything as unambiguous, unequivocal, irrefutable truth. And that applies to the existence or non-existence of a god. But more power to all the Gnostic atheists out there. I mean, at least we agree on something.
And yeah, that's fine. If you feel more comfortable with the agnostic atheist label, by all means, keep that. I'm simply giving you my reasons for why I personally use the word Gnostic. I'm not trying to tell you how you should label yourself, or I'm not trying to convince you to take a stance of certainty. But, I think that we're probably disagreeing more on the semantics of the words God, existence, and knowledge than we are in terms of what we actually believe. And I think that beliefs and actions are far more important than the labels itself. So anyway guys, thanks for watching, comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.